We work very closely with, we form part of the Tracky team, and we work very closely with the critical care speech and language therapist and the physiotherapist there. We've actually got funding at the moment for a temporary Tracky team, and that's working really well. And it means that you treat the patients with the Tracky team just for their trachea, so it's separate to all their other physio needs, and it gives you a chance to look at options for downsizing the tracheostomy to a smaller size, taking their cuff down, giving them a speaking valve, capping them off.
So that would be the process. So what would be the benefit of changing from a bigger trachea to a smaller trachea, and kind of what's the benefits and kind of the dangers of trying to wean, and talk me through the absolute weaning process.
Okay. So yeah, the weaning process starts from day one, really. So we very much assess how much supplementary oxygen they're requiring. So if they're requiring anything above 35% supplementary oxygen, we wouldn't look at starting the weaning process. But after, if they're down to 35%, we would start to look at whether they can manage their own airway without the balloon and the cuff up around the tracheostomy tube. So that would be a process of how big is their sputum load. If they've got a lot of sputum that they're struggling to clear, the nurses are struggling to clear, we would leave that cuff up. If, however, we feel that they've got a good cough and they're clearing their sputum and their sputum load is reducing, we would start to look at deflating that cuff and looking at their response when we deflate that cuff. The cuff sits around the central tracheostomy tube, so that's where the secretions often sit and lie. So we're looking for the patient to make some physiological response to that cuff coming down. So we're looking at them to cough and clear what was on there. Sometimes that happens very quickly. Sometimes it's very apparent that they are managing those secretions and they cough and they clear them and they do very well. Other people have a delayed response to that cuff deflation, but they do cough and clear it and it's okay and we can leave it down. Other patients cough and cough and cough, which probably indicates that they're hypersensitive to those secretions at the moment. So with those patients, we would put the cuff back up, give them another day, another 24 hours, another 48 hours, and then reassess. And there are those patients that do absolutely nothing when that cuff comes down. You re-auscultate their chest, they've obviously now got those secretions down on their chest and they haven't yet got the ability to realise that and cough and clear. So with that patient group as well, we would put the cuff back up and again give them 24, 48 hours and monitor for signs that their cough is better and they're maintaining their airway and their secretions with greater ease. So the first stage is cuff down. From then on in, we start to look at if they've got a large tube in, we would look, once the cuff is down and is consistently down, we would look to downsize their trachea to a size 6 cuffless trachea. So there's no cuff around the tube, it is just a tube that sits in their airway and allows access and clearance of secretions much more easily. It means that they're more likely to be able to swallow when that cuff is down, and we can easily, without causing them too much distress, put on a speaking valve and take them off oxygen and use appropriate humidification at the top of the trachea. The smaller tube as well gives them more scope to manage their own airway, so it gives us more evidence to suggest that that tube could then come out. So all that's done very closely with the speech and language therapists. And moving on from that, we then use speaking valves and digital occlusion and capping off techniques, which provides us with the whole body of evidence to say that this patient can manage their own airway. They will be able to cough and clear any secretions that do build up over time, and that they can maintain that airway and they can control their secretions through their own swallow and their cough. So that then leads to those conclusions are drawn by the physios that work on the ward, and the Tracky team, and the nurses, and the speech and language therapists. So everyone's involved in that decision. And so then the Tracky is then removed by 2 people are present. One of them's got advanced airway skills, and then it's removed, dressed, and then the patient is, if they still need supplementary oxygen, it's then managed from above.